Alright, so I'm uploading this video. This is going to be the debate between Dennis Prager and Michael Lucchese of Hillsdale College, because I did a writing that responds to Michael Lucchese, right? And I want this debate to be available for people for reference as it relates to my writing, right? And Dennis Prager is one of my favorite radio hosts. I listen to every one of the shows. Now, obviously, I'm a Straussian and he isn't, so I disagree with him quite a lot, but I still like his show quite a lot. And in this case, I agree with Dennis Prager. And the subject is, should we call the present political conflict a civil war? And, I think maybe the most important point to be made, but I make many points in my writing, which I'll link to, is that all civil wars do not have to be like Civil War I, right, from the 1860s. Just because the coming Civil War isn't going to be like that Civil War, it doesn't make it not a Civil War. And, anyway, I have a writing about it. Just a few quick comments here that I didn't put in that writing. This is somewhat personal for all of us. It's personal for me. I've really devoted a large amount of time in my life and a large amount of effort to studying society and understanding life. And I have had to sacrifice quite a lot in order to do this. Right? I've lost, all of my friends because of the left. Right? Because I explain why leftism doesn't have merit. Right? It's one of my hobbies. And it sure feels like a war to me, right? And I don't use that term lightly because I'm prepared to sacrifice everything, right? Life, fortune, and my sacred honor. Okay? That's how I feel about it, honestly. Now, I'm not a crazy person, and I'm certainly not going to resort to violence myself because, that's not what these guns are for, okay? So, but it's certainly, to me, I feel the intensity because, I've confronted leftists, right? And leftists cannot be my friends, right? One way that I would put it is that in Book 1 of Plato's Republic, Socrates mentions that decent men only participate in ruling in order to avoid the penalty of being ruled by a lesser person. Okay? See, that's my Donald Trump as Harold Hill from The Music Man right there. You can have a Donald Trump video about that. So that's why decent people participate in ruling, right, to avoid that penalty of being ruled by lesser people. And right now that's what we are facing. We are facing rule by the left, and I make the case all day that the left doesn't have merit. Really, they hate life and they hate goodness, and they have good intentions. I'm not unrealistic about my criticisms of them, but that's what we're facing. We're facing rule by lesser people, and so that means that I have to rule, and the like-minded people, somewhat like-minded people, have to rule. And I think of Lincoln's House Divided speech. Right? He says, "A house divided cannot stand," and something like he says, "I do not mean to say that the house will fall. I just mean that it will cease to be divided. It will be all one thing or all the other." So I apply that to our times, and that's pretty much what I see. Right? There's going to be a crisis, and we are presently in that crisis, but it's gonna, it might not be dated to some day prior to today, but we're presently in the crisis, and the crisis will be resolved by one side or the other ruling. Right? There will still be leftists, there will still be right-wingers, whatever. But I'm talking about being ruled by lesser people here. That's what is at stake. Is the character of the regime of our society. And Plato has another great line about this that he gives to Socrates. This one's later in the Republic, where he mentions in some contexts that in free society you find all the different kind of regimes, right? Like, a totalitarian society indoctrinates everyone to have a certain view, but if we live in a free society, people can have different views. And our society is relatively free. And the point of saying that there are different regimes in a free society is to suggest that really free society leads to faction, right? It leads to tribalism, and actually what we have is really several societies trying to live together, and they have different views about justice, these different societies, right? So basically, I just don't think that Lucchese understands how much he is despised by the left, right? Like, obviously, I haven't seen him interact with a leftist, but I can size these things up pretty well. And, I've seen him on Twitter. And, like, I don't know what he's talking about, like, trying to work with the left and be friends because, citizenship is a kind of friendship, right? And we're just provoking them by talking about civil war. Like he is a right winger. Okay, his existence provokes the left, and I just don't think he quite gets that, or something like that. Anyway, I don't normally do these intros this long, but I wanted to set up this video. You can watch. You can listen to the interview now. Read my writing; it'll be linked. And thank you very much.
Hi everybody, Dennis Prager here, and I have on the line a young man. Find out his age exactly in a moment. Just want to, he had a piece in the Federalist, a fine website. Dennis Prager adopts leftist rhetoric in calling Trump-era politics a civil war. So it was an attack on my belief that we're in a civil war. And the gentleman is Michael Lucchese. And Michael, welcome to the Dennis Prager Show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Mr. Prager.
So how old are you?
I am 21 years old.
Right. So let me tell everybody the following, and you should know this too. I had a certain hesitation about having you on, not because we differ. I have people who differ with me on all the time, but because I'm so much older than you, there was a worry. I don't have it, but there was a worry among some in my life that I would appear to be somewhat bullying if I had you on and disagreed with you. My response is that I didn't want to be handled with kid gloves by adults when I was 21. I didn't think that I would learn anything. And anyway, if I was going to write, I have to expect feedback. So it's actually the fact that I criticized your article in the Federalist is actually a kudo to you. It is not an insult. I hope you understand that.
No, I absolutely appreciate the attention, and I appreciate that you read it.
Okay, great. All right, very good. So for most of my listeners are not familiar, I'm sure, with the article, but they not even all of them know of my two articles, but they got a lot of attention, as you obviously know. And they were that we're in a civil war, a concept that I have been arguing for a number of years now, and that you correctly quoted me as saying, and I think the quote that I really summarized what you differed with was, Prager argued the primary role of a conservative is to vanquish leftism. If the left wins, America loses, and if America loses, evil will engulf the world. So you cited that one, and the other one that troubled you was, and I forgot to highlight it, but it was something to the effect that Trump's character is less important to me than vanquishing the left, or something to that effect. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
All right. So you ended your article with this statement. Dennis Prager could learn a lesson or two from George Washington. It's time to beat our rhetorical swords into plowshares. Left and right should both stop antagonizing each other for antagonism's sake and instead get to work on solving our country's problems together. So you probably heard I called this distressingly naive. And also what troubled me was a sort of moral parity that left and right are equally responsible for the divide in the country and for the rhetorical violence, if you will, the violent rhetoric, so to speak, that takes place. Also, that we antagonize each other for antagonism's sake. Let me tell you, from my perspective, I antagonize the left solely in order to help America, because I do believe if they win, America loses. So let me begin, because I don't want to argue with you. I just want to, it's not because of your age or you. It's because that's not what I do. What I do is I prefer clarity to agreement. So let's see where we differ. Do you believe that left and right are equally responsible for the divide?
Well, so what the Washington that I referenced in the article, I referenced two speeches that he gave. First, I referenced his farewell address, in which he warned the country about the problems of faction. And I do think that both the right and the left are equally responsible for the problems of faction in our country, as they have been since the days of Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton. The other Washington speech I quoted was the Newburgh Address, in which he talked about this idea of politics as warfare and actually kind of condemned that.
Right. So, again, do you think that both sides are equally responsible for our problems?
Yeah, I agree with George Washington that faction.
Yeah, but George Washington is not commenting on today's left. I don't, you know.
But I think that what Washington was saying is he was expressing a truth that is valid in the 1790s just as it's valid today.
Okay, we're going to come back. That's what distresses me. That it does, because it means that we have a very different view about the threat that the left poses to America. We'll be back in a moment of speaking to Michael Lucchese, who wrote this piece in The Federalist. Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. A young man, 21, wrote a piece for The Federalist criticizing me for my stance that there is a civil war and that if America does not vanquish the left will vanquish America. And said that this is not the rhetoric that we should use, that both sides should stop antagonizing each other, and so on. So, all right. So, again, for all I want to do is achieve some clarity. Let me ask you this. How do you feel? Because we may just have different views on America, and that's fine. But how do you feel, for example, about the military budget? Do you think it's enough, too little, or too much?
It's way too small.
Okay. And what does the left think about that?
Oh, they completely disagree with me. I said in my article, and I hold this to be true, I believe the left's principles are both contrary to the American founding and inimical to stable society and good government. I don't want to make any excuses for the left. My point is that the right cannot think to the left level. We cannot allow ourselves to think about politics the same way the left does. We can either be citizens or partisans, and I think that we have to choose to be citizens rather than partisans.
Yeah, I don't understand what you just said. I don't know how I could be a good citizen if I'm not fighting the people that you yourself say are trying to undo the principles of America's founding.
And I think that we should stand firm on our principles. I don't necessarily think, though, that we should be describing these people as enemies we're waging a civil war against. In my essay, I wrote that when we talk about politics as a civil war, we're applying to political life a kind of moral urgency that we should only apply to real, actual warfare. And while these issues matter...
Wait, forgive me. I don't understand that. Why isn't there moral urgency to non-warfare?
I definitely think there is moral urgency, and these are morally urgent questions, but they're not morally urgent in the same way as our fight against ISIS, for example.
Yeah, but I didn't compare it to... All right, but I didn't compare it to the fight against ISIS, so it's not worth bringing that
But we're not fighting a war, but we're fighting a war against ISIS. we're not fighting a war against the Democratic Party.
Okay, I don't agree with that. We're not fighting a military war, but you yourself said the left stands for undoing America's principles. So if they win, America's principles lose. Do you agree with that?
I believe American conservative principles lose.
Oh, no,
However,
you didn't say that. You added that now. Wait a minute. What is the difference between America's principles and conservative principles? If they're not the same, I don't want to be a conservative.
I think that the left is homegrown. I think that Thomas Jefferson was a man of the left. I think that the people...
You think Thomas Jefferson would find himself at home with Bernie Sanders?
I do, yes, because he found himself at home with the French Revolution.
Yes, well, that actually is sad, but he was a Francophile, so I'll excuse him on that. But first of all, do you believe that he believed that we get our rights from God?
Yeah.
Okay, does the left believe that?
I think certain parts of the left do believe that.
Name one.
I think Barack Obama believes that.
I don't.
Barack Obama
okay.
constantly, throughout his term in office, went back to the Declaration of Independence.
So you believe? Right. So does Barack Obama believes that a secular America would be a disaster?
I don't think that he necessarily is thinking in the same terms as the right is thinking on.
Well, wait. If you believe that rights come from God and that if Americans stop believing that, we are in trouble, then obviously 2 and 2 is 4. That means he would believe, as I do, that a fully secularized country would be a disaster. But he's on the side of the people who are radically secularizing America. Do you think he thinks it's okay for kids to say a prayer in school?
No, he probably doesn't.
Okay. Do you think it's okay?
I'm not trying to defend Barack Obama.
Well, I thought you were, actually. I'm sorry.
I think that Barack Obama is wrong. I think that he's wrong. But I also don't think that he is an evil man.
I didn't say he was an evil man.
No, but when we start talking about him, comparing our current political situation to the Civil War,
yeah.
I mean, one side is the Union.
All right, fine. I don't think that everybody in the South was evil, and I think slavery was evil. And I'm sure you feel the same way. Otherwise we would have no monuments to Robert E. Lee, and there are people who I think there is some merit or argue that we shouldn't. Mm-hmm. All right, so I just want to understand. So you see, if you see what I do think, I think you have, and I'm not. This is not condescending in any way. It is it is as natural to being 21 as breathing. There is a certain naivete, and the reason that I'm saying this is if you ask your parents, were you more naive at 21 than today? I will bet you a car that they will say yes. It is just the way it works. There is a wishful thinking that is one grows out of. Otherwise, one really gravitates leftward because they're very naive. It's like I remember debating a woman who came to the United States. No, she was American, but she just visited the Soviet Union. We had a debate at a church, and she said, you know, Soviet women are just like American women. And I said, yes, they are, but so what? The Soviet Union is not like the United States. But she said, no, what we need is more person-to-person contact. We can't talk about the Russians as an enemy. And that's what I'm hearing from you. The left is my enemy. I'm sorry. I don't want it to be that way. But if you acknowledge...
But Barack Obama is not like Joseph Stalin.
That's correct. You're right. You're right. You're right. Of course. And nor is Donald Trump like Benito Mussolini.
Exactly.
Okay. So what? But I never said it. I'm sorry. No. What would you like me to tone down? I shouldn't say we're in a civil war.
I think that is a mistake. Yes.
Is it a mistake saying it, or is it a mistake because you don't think it's true?
I think that...
Is it true or not? Is it true or not that we're in a non-violent... Okay, all right, back in a moment. All right, everybody. Michael Lucchese, the young man who wrote a piece criticizing me for my use of the term civil war. We don't have a lot of time, Michael. So you don't believe we're in a civil war. So let me ask you a question. Is there anything other than shooting where you think the term civil war would be appropriate. Maybe you just think unless you're killing each other physically, there's no such thing.
I believe that if politics has gotten to the point where it's most accurately described as civil war, then the American experiment is done. I think that. But
you didn't answer me. Is there a point where is there any position the left could take in which you would say, wow, opposition to it is so intense, we really are experiencing a nonviolent civil war? Or is there no position they could take?
I don't think then that we're talking about politics anymore. If we are really fighting a nonviolent civil war, then we're not talking about politics.
You're right. We're not talking about politics. We're talking about the basic value system of America. Politics has no interest to me. We're talking about America's survival as America, and you acknowledged it. Your first statement was they are inimical to the basic principles of the United States. Why fighting people who want to undo the basic principles of the U.S. is to you not a civil war?
And I think that the alt-right and their principles are utterly inimical, even more so than the far left, utterly inimical to the principles.
Right. Okay. The alt-right. Tell me a newspaper that the alt-right controls that is equivalent to the left's control of the Washington Post, the New York Times, the L.A. Times.
The left's equivalent of the alt-right, the Antifa people who are running around causing riots.
Okay.
And
so,
are the ones
all right. Well, look. First of all, I want you to know I am in this business 35 years. I never heard of the alt-right till the election of Donald Trump and the left's use of the term. I never heard of it. I didn't know it existed, and I live on the right. I'm sorry?
William F. Buckley fought the alt-right when he kicked out.
Fine, and he destroyed it. It's over. It's dead. It's dead. Okay, all right. Look,
not dead. They're the ones that are fighting at Berkeley.
You think? Do you think that the? So all right. So you think that there is a moral equivalence between the left and the right in America?
I think that the Antifa movement
no.
and the alt-right are morally equivalent.
Yes, but they're irrelevant to what I'm talking about. Basic left. Okay.
Shutting down the Antifa are the ones who are shutting down speakers at college campuses.
No, college presidents are shutting down speakers because they give in to these thugs, these fascists.
Yeah, absolutely.
So don't blame Antifa. Blame the people who run universities. Okay. Anyway, look, we got to go. The only way you could go on a show is if we have sponsors, and we have to. So we have to break. Thank you so much for coming on, Michael Lucchese. I'm Dennis Prager. I wish I could have taken more calls. I think this is very valuable. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for listening.